Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to a cooking demo here at the Lebanon Senior Center. And we're going to do it a little different today. I'm actually filming this ahead because I'm going to be out of town for a couple of days. So I'm not going to be cooking so much as talk about sharing some cooking ideas and tips. And you might see like the variety of condiments and spices laid out before me going, oh my gosh, this is going to be really involved. And need a lot of ingredients. Not so much the case, but we're going to talk about a lot of ideas. So you can pick and choose which ones you want to take with you. And I'm going to actually be putting recipes, links to sites that I've hijacked ideas from, for quite a while, in the notes of this particular cooking demo. So there won't be a one recipe specifically shared, just some links of where you can go. And you're like, okay, what's the topic, Rebecca? Well, if you looked in your newsletter, you saw that it is National BBQ Month. May is National BBQ Month. I know, surprised me. I would expect to see it in a summer month, but evidently it's May. And I love to barbecue. My Traeger grill and I have a very special relationship. It is one of my most favorite tools to have. When I was actually looking for a place recently, I wanted to make sure it would accommodate my Traeger. It's been around, it's probably third or fourth hand, been passed down to people, and it's well loved. I love to barbecue. We do it here at the center, usually at least once or twice during the summer, have some grills brought in or borrow some, and we do it for a potluck. It's always a lot of fun. Barbecues are a great community-minded, gathering, social experience. They have a lot of fun, warm memories. You probably have some too. But people think, well, maybe I've downsized. I'm not allowed to have a barbecue at my place anymore. I can't do that. It's not for, you know. You know what? Phooey. Phooey. Yes, I'm not saying phooey on honoring rules about where you live. If you're not allowed to have a little barbecue, that's okay. The good news is I'm here to say you can get some of those flavors and feelings of barbecue brought in to use in your kitchen. So you don't even have to necessarily do outdoor cooking to get that feeling of barbecue. And we're going to talk about some different things you do, because some of the nature of barbecue is some of those seasoning flavors, as well as the sear on meats and the type of heat you use. So we can certainly talk about those things. So one of the things that makes my Traeger grill really special to me is that it's a smoking grill. So it's not just, propane heat. It's not just flame that's kissing whatever's on the grill. There's smoke involved. And smoke can add a lot of flavors. It makes you feel like you're cooking over wood. Truly, with the Traeger, you're cooking over wood pellets, so you are cooking with wood fire. And depending on what kind of wood you use, wood pellets, you get different flavors, be it mesquite or hickory or apple or cherry woods. Those woods all change the slight subtle flavors that you're putting into what you have on the grill. They have a great product, and of course, it's the one I forgot to bring with me today, because it's one I don't have at the Senior Center, is something called liquid smoke. It's a thing. If you go look in the barbecue sauce aisle of the store, you'll probably see things like barbecue sauce, you'll see Worcestershire, you'll see steak sauce. Up above, usually the top shelf, there are these tiny bottles of maybe 2 brands of something called liquid smoke. It's got quite a bit of salt to it, so it's something you want to use sparingly. And usually you can find it in mesquite or hickory. Those are kind of the 2 flavors I've seen. Not to say you might not find something else, but you can add a little drop to a marinade. You can, sometimes I just rub it on the meat just so it kind of saturates in, and it helps get some of those smoky notes into your meat or what you're about to prepare, even if it's being cooked inside. I've used it in a skillet on the stove before with something that I've been cooking, so it really is kind of versatile. Of course, you can use it for something you're using on the grill as well. So liquid smoke is a good tip. You can get cedar planks. They're food grade, And I have actually cooked, you have to soak them before you use them, because obviously if you put wood in a heated environment like a stove or grill, it's just going to catch fire. So you soak them in water so they don't catch fire first. And I like to cook salmon on top of them, get some of the flavor from the cedar into the salmon. But you can actually line those cedar boards up on, a cookie sheet or, some kind of pan, and put your salmon on them and do that in the oven. And that the wood from the cedar wood will kind of infused into that meat in the oven as well as on the stove. So again, that's another way you can use it. And I'm sure you can use those cedar boards for things other than fish if you're not a fish person. I'm not usually, but I will eat salmon that way. So there's some tips. And they also do make some indoor smokers and some really fancy gadgets as well. So aside from the smoke, adding a sear. So one of the things about barbecue, which is really nice, is you get the crispy bits, right? You get those grill marks. Those grill marks, that black char on our grilled food. Just for some reason adds some yummy flavor, right? We really like it. Sometimes people fight over things that are burnt ends, like the end of the meat that gets that crisp, really charred look to it. So you can't necessarily get the same kind of char, but you can sear. So getting a pan hot on the stove, putting your meat or vegetables in the skillet and getting a nice char on them, getting that sear, that really cooked crisp bit on there is really important if you want to kind of create that feeling even without having a barbecue. And one of the tricks there is you can start it on the stove, get the sear on, and then, because obviously you don't want to keep cooking at just that temperature, because it's hard to control then the internal temperature. Skillet cooking isn't great for letting us do that. So you can get the skillet hot, get a sear on the meat both sides. You can transfer it to another baking dish, or if your skillet is oven safe, you can then transfer it to the oven to finish cooking. Because there you can set a temperature and do kind of a controlled cook on it to get a more even cook throughout your piece of meat, because you don't want to just burn. The point isn't burning the whole external components of the meat that you're cooking or the vegetables that you're cooking. Burnt is different than sear. Okay, sear is kind of a light, just crispy edginess to things. Burnt is, toast. It's all the way through. It's completely covered. It tastes gross. So you don't want to do that. So you can start a sear on a pan on top of the stove, finish it in the oven. That's step 2. They do make indoor grills. So they almost look like an electric griddle, like you'd put pancakes on, except they usually have little grooves, high points. So you plug it in, you can set it, and again, you can treat it like a grill you would outside, except it's done electrically. Not necessarily going to allow you flavor transfer, but you will get those grill marks. So it's kind of like doing that sear on the pan, except it's a sear on top of a griddle that's kind of got a pattern on it. So you can certainly do that way. You can certainly, if you got a lot of sauces or things or something with a high sugar content, marinade, watch your smoke detectors, because those will certainly get set off. If the sear gets going too much, it can create a lot of smoke indoors. So open those windows, keep the fan going, just to make sure you don't set off an alarm with an indoor grill. All right, so there's kind of some basic just tips for the grill itself. One of my favorite parts about grilling is the fun things I like to do is rubs, marinades, or sauces. These important differences. And there's some different ways around the country that they do things. So the first one we'll talk about first, of course, is sauce. A lot of us think of barbecue, think barbecue sauce. You can certainly, if you have a favorite bottled barbecue sauce, hey, just use that. There's great ways to make it from scratch, and there's great ways to amplify already sauces that you might already like, or buy a cheap bottle and add things to it to really make it your own flavor, your own signature. So in South Carolina, they do more vinegar-based sauces. So of course, they might start with a tomato base. A typical barbecue sauce will start with kind of a tomato ketchup-y, kind of sweet tomatoey sauce. But they like to add vinegar. So if you want to get a little bit more pucker, that tartness a bit, to balance out the sweetness. You can certainly add a combination of vinegars, or not even a combination, try different vinegars and find which one you like. Apple cider vinegar is really popular to use, but you can also try red wine vinegar or even some balsamic vinegar. Start with a little bit, try it out, mixing it with a favorite barbecue sauce you have, and just see what you like. You can always add a little bit more until you find, a combination you really like. And of course, you might like it with certain meats more than others. You can certainly do, you just put some balsamic glaze on some veggies, and that sounds good all on its own. So that's one way you can doctor up a sauce, is going a little South Carolina and adding some vinegar. Other things you can do is to an existing sauce would be to add a little steak sauce or a little Worcestershire sauce. In the food world, there's a thing called umami, which is one of the taste buds areas on our tongue, and it's just kind of a funk. It's just kind of an extra flavor to things. And so you can take your barbecue sauce and add things like that to get those little bold flavors, just to touch the notes of our umami taste buds a little bit, and it might be add some bold flavors that you might enjoy. I tend to, of course, use that more for like a steak or some strong meat that can hold up to those flavors, not be completely overwhelmed by those. So you can certainly do that with a steak sauce as well. With your, I traditionally like to go more on a sweet sauce side. I like to add like honey or molasses, or with a brown sugar a bit to my barbecue sauce, especially if I'm doing like some barbecue chicken. I like to really sauce up those chicken legs. It makes them a mess to eat, but they're really good. And so something about the sweetness of the sauce that sticks to, helps it stick to those drumsticks when I'm grilling chicken legs. I've also seen people add Coca-Cola to their barbecue sauce before. So if you're a Coca-Cola fan, you can always give that a try. You can also punch up the flavors of your barbecue sauce by adding some herbs to it, or spices. I like to add some smoked paprika, or you can add some hot sauce, or you can add, various things like cumin, very traditional to barbecue, more pepper, more garlic, either powdered or, minced, to really just, create a flavor that's distinct to you, or maybe complement side dishes that you are going to do. Another thing you can add to barbecue sauce is jam, believe it or not. I've been on occasion add some orange marmalade. I tend to like it a little bit on a pork chop, because there's something about the slight tang of orange marmalade mixed with a little bit barbecue sauce. A little sweet, a little tart. It can be really good. So again, you can start your own barbecue from scratch, or get an inexpensive bottle of barbecue sauce and then zhuzh it up by raiding your spice cabinet and playing with it a little bit till you like your own. Last tip on sauce, always start with something small. Don't make like a big batch when you're trying something new, just so you don't, waste some of your flavorings as you try things out. You can always try something out in a small batch and then make something a little bit bigger if you were, having a gathering and a get together and really wanted to make enough to cover everything for that day. And then let's see here. Let's go on to, let's go rubs. So rubs is probably the second thing I would do the most often after sauces. So rubs are dry. A lot of Kansas City influence on rubs and some Texas influences. So all they do for rubs is they use dry herbs and spices to literally rub onto, so sprinkle onto the meat they're going to put on the grill. They literally even massage it into the meat at times. Kind of get kind of a crust on the meat while it cooks, and they're really good. It's might find those seasonings in a bottle that are blends. Those are often where that comes from. They're kind of rub inspired, and you can actually play with the combinations of seasonings you like, and package them up and hold on to them to use. So you can make a really small individual batch every time, or when you find a combination you really like, you can make a bigger batch and store it in a dry, cool place. Don't let it get wet, and you can have it to use whenever you're wanting to get the barbecue flavor in what you're doing. Some very typical things to use in a barbecue rub: garlic powder, onion powder, cumin, smoked paprika, um, and then it kind of extends there. Some people like to put ground mustards in, various other types of pepper, be it cayenne or ancho, or all kinds of different flavors you can add to a dry rub. Again, I'm going to put some links below and you can check out some ideas. But really, you can't go wrong with them. I, again, like to use one that includes adding some brown sugar into it. So it's kind of a sweet and spicy rub. And I've been known to do a rub first, and then I can come back and sauce it up later. Sometimes it just allows you to layer flavors onto whatever you're cooking that day. Last but not least, marinades. Marinades are a lot of fun because it's a way of prepping something ahead of time. I do a lot with chicken. Chicken's like a blank canvas, right? Because you can add so many different flavors to chicken. Or marinades can be great if you've got a cheaper or more inexpensive cut of meat, and it can be a way to help tenderize that meat, especially if you're adding any kind of acid or salt. It can really help just kind of break down some of those proteins to actually make it tender. So, marinade suggestions. Again, this is literally a hodgepodge of things that I pulled from around the center that we already had. You can do Asian influences, adding a little bit of soy sauce to some olive oil. You could add in pineapple juice or some of the orange marmalade, some garlic, maybe a little lime juice, and really kind of get not quite teriyaki, but kind of an Asian sweet, sour, savory combination going on to, have your chicken marinade in. That sounds really good. Or do some kebabs and have them sit in that, marinade for a while. Even overnight would be great. So that'd be, a way to go. Can you cheat with that? And the aged balsamic dressing that's hanging out in the back of the fridge. Sometimes I do that. I'll buy a dressing that, I'm maybe not using as much as I thought I would. So I'll try to find a way to turn it into a marinade so I can use it up. Because I hate using food waste. I hate having something sit in my fridge that's not getting used up. So we could use this aged balsamic vinaigrette, cut out the soy sauce, marry these two together with maybe a little extra garlic. Could go, summer's coming, go pull some fresh herbs out of your garden. A little cilantro in here would be really nice with this combination. And make a marinade, again, for that chicken, or, whatever. You can even do it with pork, would be really nice. So a lot of marinade options as well. So marinade is kind of a wet, not quite sauce. It's usually thinner than a sauce that you are going to let generally meat. You can do marinades with other things as well, but generally meat sit in for a period of time. The longer you let the meat sit in the marinade, the more those flavors will permeate into the meat. So usually you want to let it go for a bit of time. I've seen some things go for as little as 30 minutes. Some things, if you do it overnight, sometimes that can be even better. You just want to put the marinade over the meat, cover it, put it in the fridge, let it hang out over the night, and then you can cook it the next day. A couple of hours or something you can do at noon if you want it for dinner. So just keep that in mind. When you're using a marinade, you want it to be it's a do-ahead kind of thing. All right, so there's the tips I have for you today on bringing some experience of barbecue into your home, either playing with sauces, rubs, or even marinades. You can get a sear on meat inside, finish it in the oven, use smoke or liquid smoke or an indoor grill. But you can have fun whether you have an outdoor barbecue or not, and really celebrate National BBQ Month, because I think it's fun to barbecue all year long. And if nothing else, and it's a hot day and you don't want to cook, go hit one of the local barbecue joints in town. We've got some really great joints here that like to put on some good barbecue. Or, get a friend to invite you over to their barbecue. All right, everybody. We will see you later, and hopefully sooner than later, we'll get to have another barbecue here at the Lebanon Senior Center.